Right, here we go then. Newly collected. I haven't got a clue how much root system there is here. Not a lot for the looks of it, that's a shame. We will work with whatever we've got. I'm getting it out of the bag first because I don't know what to put it in until I know what sort of root system we're working with. Right, not a lot then. We don't need the grass. I'm surprised a lot more earth didn't come out with that, I must admit. Right, so this is going to have to go in a pot. The only feeder roots are around here, and that's not many. One here that will produce more. Apart from that, not much else. Now these great big tap roots, I'm going to take them off so that it goes in a pot. And I don't know whether these type of roots are capable of... oh, my secateurs need sharpening. It's the bark they won't cut. Well, if they won't, the scissors will. As I said, I don't know whether these types of trees, roots, are capable of branching if they're cut. But one way or the other, it's got to go in a pot. And to get it in a pot, it needs to be cut. I've got some feeder roots in here. That's not many for the size of the tree. This root looks dead, so we'll take that off now. That will leave a strange lump on the trunk, which I'm going to take off if I can. I have to get my knob cutter on that. We'll try it with the secateurs. Yeah, that's come off okay. It's just strange. See, I've now got a hollow. Yeah? We've got some hollows here. This is where it was on the side of a path. Got some damage there. So the base of the trunk's got some character. Right, so now I'm going to have to find something big enough for this to go in up to there. I might have to take that off down here and then just hope. In fact, I think I will. There's no way I'm going to get it in a pot otherwise, so we will see what we can do. There we go. Right, now at least I can get it in a pot and then it can get put somewhere in the shade. These branches like this I'm going to gin, because all of these lower branches, I won't be keeping all of them. But I want to get it in a pot before I start attempting to take branches off or anything like that. So we will have a tidy up, which isn't much basically, chuck these out in the hedge, and I will try and find something for it to go in, get some media sorted, then we can get it potted. Once it's in a pot I can get it on my turntable and we can start looking at branch selection. The candles have pushed on far more than I would have liked. I'd like to have got this till 3 weeks ago, but chance was a fine thing. So we'll get it potted up and then we'll have a look at what we're going to keep, and it certainly won't be the bush that you see now. It'll be a lot less than that. A lot less, especially bearing in mind it's got hardly any roots, so I don't want to put what few roots there are under too much stress by trying to put too much growth on at the top, because it won't happen. Yeah, you've got the concept of photosynthesis. It's got a lot of needles It's the new growth that will take the energy out of the tree. The needles that exist already, last year's and previous couple of years, that will help feed the plant. Yeah, so it's got some nutrition and strength coming in from the sheer amount of needles that it's got. But it's going to use that up far quicker pushing these growths out with a small root system than it will without them. So most of them will be coming off. Right, I'll be back. Okay, not very well planned this, because that's the largest pot I've got. It's got absolutely giant holes in the bottom, so I've got some of my mesh and cut it out into somewhere near a circle, which will fit over the bottom and stop all the media falling out. Point number one. That's a relatively tall tree. It won't be when I finish with it, but I'm going to chuck some rather large rocks in the bottom of the pot, so that hopefully the pot doesn't keep falling over, but there'll be a lot less foliage on the tree by the time I've finished. Now what we've got here is my normal mix but with extra grit. That's going in there, hang on, put this all over the floor if possible. So that's going in there as a base. But then what's going in around where the roots could possibly shoot out is sphagnum moss. Now Peter Chan swears by this stuff. When he gets a tree out of the ground, he puts it in a flat basket with like a bread basket, yeah, so plenty of air, and he puts it in sphagnum moss. And that's all I think he does. Well, I'm not going to be that brave and just use sphagnum moss, basically because the tree will keep falling over. I'm going to mix it with some media, which I will do in the pot. But in and around where the roots are going to be, we're going to be quite heavy on this stuff. So I'm going to mix it with some media so that it's not on its own, and there'll be some substance there, but the moss nonetheless can do its job, which is to encourage root growth. Is this going to go in? No. And still need more off. I'm leaving this one sticking out because it's got a root that looks like it will turn into a feeder. So anything else that's stopping it going in the pot will have to come off, because if it hasn't got feeder roots, it's of no use. So you can come off, apart from helping to stabilise it in the pot. You'll have to come off, and so will you. Right. So all I've done is shorten those. I haven't taken away any of the potentially viable roots yet. We're still not in the pot yet. That should go in now. Yeah. Sinking it down in. It'll be offset in the pot, tough. That's basically where the feeder roots are going to be, so that's where it's going to have to go. And then what we'll do is we'll put some more moss directly around where those feeder roots are, and then we'll put some more media in to sort of hold that in place. But basically, as I said, Peter Chan swears by his sphagnum moss for newly dug up trees, and he ends up with he's got videos, you can go and have a look. He ends up with after an amount of time, depending on the tree, he lifts the tree out and it's a solid mass of roots, and it's the moss that's done that basically. I'm not going to force this in, but I am going to pack it in quite tight down the sides. Always the way with media for bonsai. You mix up what you think is far too much, you sprinkle it in and you think, oh, that wasn't a bad guess. Then you start pressing it down the sides and you've suddenly opened up huge vast caverns that haven't got any media. And then you start filling those up and you think, oh, perhaps I haven't mixed up enough. Right, so that'll do. That'll get a good watering. There's enough media in there to give it some substance, and plenty of moss around where those roots are. And we will see if it does the job, because I haven't used that, well, not on bonsai before. I've used it on my orchids, and we'll see how we go. Now, I don't know what sort of sphagnum moss that is, but it's got bits of fern and all sorts of stuff like that. Potentially it could come back to life, because I doubt if it's been treated to kill it. Right, so we'll get that over there. We'll get this out of the way. And then I'll just get my turntable. Hopefully we've got enough room to spin this round a few times. Right, so branch selection. First branch, we have a choice of two. Can't keep them both. That's the better one. But I'm not. The problem with it is it's not going to back bud anywhere near the trunk. But it will still make a nice pad, and once that's actually wired downwards like that, and the pad's just, all the ends are tipped upwards, that's about the right height for the first branch. So we'll have that as our first branch, not that one. That one's a bit long and wispy. And this dead bit here, I may make a gin out of that. Not sure yet, so I'm going to leave it. It's just a dead piece, it's not going to hurt. To do a gin, you remove the bark and make sure it sort of looks a bit natural, not sort of sawn off in a circle, and then put some lime sulphur on it to turn it white. Now if this branch is going to come off, which it is, because I can't keep them both, they would just not be right. I'll take it off with the secateurs. On the floor for now, I'll do that later. And then I get my knob cutter, and see, I could have made a gin out of that as well, but two really close together, it's going to look a bit contrived. So we'll just keep the one. We'll take that back so that it should callus over then. Just dig in a bit into the wood, and then the bark will close over the top. So that'll do for now. We'll fine tune these later. Right, so that's our first branch. Now, our second branch is going to have to be this one. Luckily, it has a piece coming out near the base. Second branch. Now I'm looking for the third now. We've got some handlebars coming up, which I only want one of. This one will have to bend. We'll have to bend that round, sort of there. It's actually slightly damaged, that branch. Got a crack in it. It was right on the edge of a path, so it could have been knocked by motorbikes, all sorts of things. But I'll put a bit of wire around that to hold it in place. That bit's dead, and that's right where the crack is. But if I put a bit of wire around that, it should heal itself, and then that can be bent round to there, and that can be brought round to join it, and that'll make quite a nice thick pad there with that bit. Yep. So if we're keeping that branch, we don't want this one, but what we do want is, what is the next one going to be? I think the next one might have to be this one, which is one of the handlebars, which means the other one has to come off. which also means this one's going to have to come off. So I'm rethinking here. I'll come round here. Do you know what, I think I might tip this over. I think I might actually use that as the aspect of the tree. That way I can have more branches on this side and the ones on this side will be shorter. And we'll have a sloping tree, one that's a bit windswept perhaps. Will that work? Got more than enough material down one side of the tree, and the other side of the tree has some nice short looking branches that would work, because they're quite close together, which gives the right look. Especially this branch, this is a smashing little branch here. So we keep those two. This one, that one. That means I'm going to keep that one as well. We have quite a few branches coming out to the right before we get anything coming out to the left. I wonder if that would work. Might look like this is a bit indecisive, but once you cut the branch off you can't stick it back on again. And this is the initial shaping. This is deciding the basic shape, and once you've done that you don't really get much of a second chance, so it's just I've got to take my time over it. I mean, the one thing I do know is that the apex is coming off, so I'll do that now. That's coming off. Now we have a triangle here, we have 3 branches coming out all together. One of those needs to be a continuation of the trunk, but then I have to ask, does it? Do we come down to the pair of handlebars below it and choose one of those instead? Yeah? And take it off one, come down one more. I need enough branches to get some pads going, but this one here would make quite a nice apex. If it will bend sufficient. It's pretty stiff at the base. Might not be the best of ideas, but something's got to be a continuation of the trunk. It can't just stop dead. So a branch needs to point upwards, and to blend in with the existing trunk it needs to be a branch that's facing us once we decide where the front of the tree is. Well, that's still not actually decided yet. I mean, I was running with that view, so that would be our first branch. That was going to be our second branch, slightly forward and out to the side. Can we then keep that branch as well? That means 2 branches coming out at the same point. It's not good. And if that is going to be how the front is, then this branch that's pointing straight in my face has got to come off. Sideways round. That would put the first branch being slightly backwards, the second branch in a nice place, slightly forward. These branches are confusing me because they're wrong. So some, there's material to come off there, but like I said, once you take it off, you can't stick it back on. If I actually put that over on a slope, like that, that could head away, that can join it. Difficult. I mean, at the end of the day, it's only a collected tree. Chances of it being a perfect bonsai in 20 years' time are still relatively slim, on the grounds that you know, to get all the branches that you want in the right place, you need to start with with a seedling type tree and train it as you go and decide, right, that branch we're going to keep. This is going to be the new leader, and you do it as a young tree. When you collect a tree like this, you just have to run with what you've got and make the best of it at the end of the day. What about if we slope it the other way? So the trunk would start by running away from us and then having to be brought back in. Yeah, and it'll be forever trying to tip the pot over, won't it? It's the trouble with the sloping trees. They're always trying to tip the pot over. Could cheat. So there's a this little branch here has got a shoot right near the trunk, which with a bit of jiggery pokery could look like it was growing out of the trunk and be look like a side branch off of there, hidden by the trunk, sort of masquerading. I think I'm going to make that into a back branch and turn this into more of a side branch. And that's going to be my first branch. That's going to be my second branch on that side. And we could leave that one round the back. It's too thick. The next one up would be a better one. Right, happy with the first three, especially as there's a piece of it that will point backwards and make a pad. Even though it's still attached to that branch and it's obviously part of it, it will still give the tree some depth. If that's true, this one pointing straight at me can't stay, but the one above it can. So that's a big piece to take off, but decision made. That one's off. Right, now we can see daylight. Right, so this one in effect is going to become two branches. So we will do something with this bit, and then this bit will point backwards and stay pointing backwards, which then brings us on to this one here, which quite honestly, with the size of the trunk, ought to come off because it's thicker than the branches below it, and then we start working with the next ones up. So I think we ought to take that one off as well, because the scale's wrong. Let's have a look at that angle there, where that's our first branch leaning forward. And we've got a branch that would sort of go slightly above it, and then all of this becomes like a back and a side branch. Yeah, I'm going to take that one off. Now we can see daylight. The reason that one's come off is because it's thicker than all the branches below it. It's just going to look wrong. Let's get this wood out. I can always tidy these things up later. Back to where we were. There. And there. And there. Now we've got a branch that we can push back and up. See, with an S shape put in that branch, you know, with a kink put in that branch with some heavy wire, this will come into the trunk by quite a bit. So it won't be sticking out quite so far. Now we've got to make our decision up here. What are we keeping? What are we keeping? I think where I am now, it's about time we had a branch that overlaps the trunk a little. Not a lot. That's going to be this one. This one, although it comes out from the same place, will go backwards and outwards. That gives us some depth near the top. That'll work. Now we've got to decide what to do here. And if that's going to be our front aspect, which I think I've made my mind up, then out of these three at the top there can be only one. It can't be the one pointing away from us because you'll be looking at the scar. This one's, it would blend in nicely, but it's pointing downwards. It won't bend. That won't work. So it's going to have to be that one. So process of elimination. We've chosen our new leader, which means those two can come off now. You remember what I said about the amount of growth that the tree can support? Well, it's not supporting much now, is it? In comparison. I've got to try and cut that. Oh, that's a thick one. Right. So that will, with a bit of tidying, that will blend in quite nicely, but I can't quite see what I'm doing now because I'm working above myself. Right, so that will be our new trunk. So, view for you, coming over here, this is what I'm working with. Okay, I'm working with that as my first branch above the gin, yeah? So that will be our first branch. That will get a good kink put in it and all of this growth brought in and turned up, and the whole branch will point like that. So that will be the first branch. I'm not doing this now. Let the thing grow before we start putting kinks and, you know, restricting the sap flow. Then this will be our next branch here, but this little bit here will be allowed to point backwards to become a back branch. That will be our next branch that will be allowed to point slightly upwards to get some gap. So that one will point down, this one will be a bit flatter. And then we've got this one, which will be allowed to go across the trunk near the top. This one will spread and bring in closer to the trunk, and then this will be our leader to point upwards. So that's the basic design done. We won't be doing any more than that now. All I'm going to do now is take the growth off, and that's all I'll do for now, apart from giving it a flipping good water. I'm not wiring today. So what we've got to do now is we've got to work out where we want to push energy, yeah, and where we want that energy to force back budding because it's got nowhere else to go. That's the object of removing candles completely, yeah, to stop the surge of growth, so that stops the branches extending any more for this year. The tree will still want to grow. It can feed itself through its 1 and 2 and possibly even on this one 3-year-old needles, yeah, so it doesn't need the new growth to live. It needs the old growth to live. And if it's run out of all its leaders, then it will have to produce some buds to grow. Otherwise it's not growing at all. That's how you force the buds. Well, that's the theory anyway. So all of this new growth is coming off. Right back to the stump, basically. there's a little tiny bit of growth there which I will leave. Everything else is coming off. The idea being that it forces it, but I'm going to leave one on each branch to draw the sap. So there'll be one leader left on each of these branches. So that one's done, and that's the one I'm leaving, that little one there. And don't leave a big one. Here, that's a side branch to this branch, but again I would like some sap to come down there, so we'll take the big strong one off and the other strong one off and leave the little one. Over here, these are all little branches. Take the leader out. We'll leave that one, but we'll break it in half. And over here we've got a big one and a little one. We'll take the big one off, leave the little one. Come round to here. We need the sap to go to the end of the branch. So we take the big one off, leave the small one, take these off completely. There'll be very little left growing on this by the time I've finished, and the tree will be registering damage, damage, damage. How am I going to grow now? I'm going to have to push out some back buds to get some new shoots going to extend my branches. That's where the back budding will come in. Well, that little side branch has got an end there that has a growth, so the big one on the very end can come off. Here we've got an abundance of growth here. We've got 3. That's a little side branch. 2 biggest ones off, the one that's left in half. Down here, side branches with shoots, take that in half. Get to here now, strong branch here and a lot of strong new growth. Right, well, first job is that's got 3 branches at the end of it, and we don't want 3, we only want 2. So we take the tip out, that'll help. So that hasn't really happened anywhere else, they're all 2s. So they've already branched for me. I'm not having to force them. But that one did have 3 on it. So we'll take that one back to 1 now, to 2. And then deal with our growth. So that can come in half, a little bit there. Back budding on that little branch will be wonderful because it's sticking slightly upwards already. Pair there, so biggest one right off, other one 2/3. Again, 2 big, 3 big ones here. Yeah, this is how you get those triangle branches that in later life are a nuisance as they don't work. So biggest one off, second biggest one off, other one in half. And that leaves us with this bit here. That one goes in half, this one's got 3 again, so biggest 2 off. And the other one in half. Right, that's that lower section done. This little one round the back here, which is going to be our back branch, I'm going to leave one, take one in half. So we need some back budding there to thicken that one up, but it's actually quite tight. It will look tight to the trunk. Then up here, see this is a 3 here, but I'm going to have to work with that 3, and it will be covered up once these branches are bent in because it's quite tight to the trunk. But again, we need to thicken them up. So that's got a little one and 2 big ones, so 2 big ones off, let the little one push on. This one's got 2, so biggest one off. Other one in half, that's just 1, so just down to half. This one's got 3, so again 2 biggest ones off. Can't see what I'm doing there. I need to be taller. And take that one in half. That's that one done. Come round to this one now. I'm going to be hard on this now. Got a little side shoot and the tiniest one's going to be left. there. That's only got a little one, we'll leave it. Big one and a little one there, so big one off, small one in half. That's got 1, 2/3, 2/3. That's got 3. Again, 2 biggest ones off. Leave the little one because it is a little one. That's got a big one right off and the other one right down. So that's that one done. That'll do. Coming round, what haven't we done then? Done all that, done all that. Right, we're on to this one now. There's a big 3 there, so 2 biggest off. That one down low. That's 2, biggest one off. Take that one back. And then that's only got 1. Down smaller. That's got 1 big one. Take that one right down. Now we're up to the top bit. Now you have to bear in mind this is going to be our new trunk. So although we've decided at this point which is going to be the extension of the trunk, what's next? Which one of these is going to be the next one to be the leader and which will become branches? Because it's a 3, it's a set of 3. So in theory we ought to cut it right back. But I have to leave something at the top. Bird on the roof. I have to leave something on the top, otherwise the sap will go into the side branches. Yes, we want that, but it could sacrifice the top because there's no draw. Yeah, you have to have something growing for the sap to want to go down there and help out. So you have to leave something growing. So it's the same as if you're pruning larger branches. So like this branch here, if I prune this branch down to here and took all the greenery off, it won't backbud, not on this old wood. It'll only do that if there's green in front of it. So you have to leave some green. Just going to pinch these back. Right, that will do. So like I said at the beginning, by the time I finish there'll be a lot less for this tree to support because a lot of it's coming off. Now at the moment I don't see any bugs. I think we're okay with bugs, bug free, given that it's a wild tree, that's not bad going. There will be some more tidying to do and some wiring to do, but not now. What I'd like to see now is some effort from the tree to feed itself using the greenery it's got, yeah? For the smaller shoots to start to push on, and if any of them start to look a bit vigorous as the summer progresses, I'll pinch them back again. You have to bear in mind it's a Scots Pine, they don't stop growing in the winter, they just slow right down. And that is often where the little buds start to appear, when the rest of the growth is sort of finished for the year and it tries to push out some buds. But it'll only do that if the rest of the strength of the tree has been removed. You know, the massive growing stuff, this stuff. If I leave that on there, that's where the tree will put all its effort, and I'm not keeping these anyway, am I? So now take them off. So now what's left, it should push on. Tree will try and find places to grow. If it succeeds and it starts getting a bit vigorous in some areas, you pull those back, then the vigour will be redistributed into the other branches. The idea being is that we get some nice even back budding over the whole of the tree. And during that time, with any luck, we'll be establishing a root system with the aid of our Peter Chan's sphagnum moss. Right, so that's going to go somewhere where it doesn't get any sun at the moment. I'm going to leave it a month, maybe 6 weeks in the shade, to hopefully establish some roots activity into that moss. The chances are it'll show, because the growth on here now has been pinched right back. It's effectively stopped, so it's now not growing to any extent. The tree will react to that and start trying to grow again and hopefully producing some back buds. And then once that growth starts to happen and the tree twigs that it's not actually lost all its tips altogether, it'll push roots. That's the theory. So there we go. I'll say that's a, let me just get that. That's effectively the front view, what you're looking at now. Eventually, as I said, this will become the first branch. That will be pushed around to get some depth. This will be kept relatively high and brought back in. This will be brought back in and brought down, so that will be our lowest branch. That's going to form quite a nice pad, I think. Once all these ends are turned up and we get our back budding, I think that's going to look pretty good as a first branch. Second branch, pretend back branch, next branch up, brought back in, and then here we can allow this one to cross the trunk slightly. This will be maintained and spread out to give width and depth. I've got 3 here, so we can take one that way for a pad, one this way, and let that one go backwards, and then this is our new leader, which I haven't decided what I'm keeping there. So that's it for today, and it was dark when I collected that, so it was all good fun, and the path that went to it again was all good fun. What I'll do now is, on the end of this video, I'll put the link to the last little field trip where I went to actually check that this tree was still okay, and the other one that I left there today is the twin trunk, and I probably won't collect that this year. I may wait a year. I could lose it if I do that, because at some point that area is going to have all its conifers and silver birch pulled out, because it's a rare damp heathland, and that habitat needs to be maintained, and if it's not maintained it will turn back to forest within about 5 years, as the conifers will just go mad. So you know, the trees are doomed anyway, so that's that, and we'll see what we can do with that. Give that 5 years, I think we might have something resembling a reasonable bonsai, providing it decides to backbud and produce a reasonable root system. But it won't go in a bonsai pot till at least the spring, and only then if it's got a substantial root system to warrant the disturbance. If it hasn't, it can stay another year in the pot. Right, all good fun, and the video showing this in the daytime as it was before it came here and got cut to pieces and put in a pot is on the end of here. Thanks for dropping by. See you next time.